Hello, everybody. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at Phoenix Nap, and today we have an awesome webinar. We're here with my friends from American Tower, and we're going to talk about everything edge computing. I'm joined by David Fox, Director of Business Development for American Tower, and specifically their entire edge kind of division. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right. So, for everyone that's joined the call today, we've automatically entered you into a giveaway for a $100 Amazon gift card, and we will be distributing that after the webinar. So you'll get an email from our teams saying, hey, you won. It's digital, it's easy. You just log in with your Amazon account and it adds it to your account right away. So should be pretty simple. So we're gonna get our party started with a poll question. Ultimately, I think if you're here, you're interested in edge computing of some type, let's roll out that poll and tell me what it is about your application or set of applications that are driving this need for edge computing. What brought you here today? All right. It's interesting. I'm gonna let that get to about 50%. If you haven't voted yet, throw on that vote so we get some good data. All right. It looks like, somewhere around 46% are saying all the above. I think it's interesting for me because ultimately I think a lot of people get kind of attracted to edge computing with the latency sensitive workloads. And or real-time analytics, and then I think C, kind of everyone wants to do it securely and compliantly, and so definitely drove some answers to this question towards the all of the above. But let's dive into this. Let's take a deep dive of sorts into the whys and the wheres and the hows. Like, where are we at in terms of edge computing? And ultimately, I think that when you look at the Gartner definition of edge, right? So not the regional co-location, that would be regional data center or something like that in their classification. You still see this large amount of IT equipment happening at the actual edge, whether that's an office building, and this is just everything you can think of. Clients, PC or printers, manufacturing equipment, talking to the network, and then all the stuff that like most people find sexy about the edge, right? The actual edge computing that's starting to happen, and decision making being done at the edge today with some type of computational resource. And so, given that kind of broader category of stuff, it does make sense that a large percentage of IT infrastructure will be deployed at the edge. I think that ultimately, as the connected device ecosystem grows, you're going to see a large majority of devices by count for sure, and probably even like total network traffic happening at the edge. And I think it's a similar analogy to people's traditional environments where, most people would say that the intra networking in a traditional company exceeds the internet connectivity or internetworking with external applications or devices, sometimes 50x, 100x, right? So like crazy amount of bandwidth happening internally, and then the actual access to the internet being much more muted. And I think that kind of does roll over into the long-term edge computing strategy, where you see organizations having significant deployments in their totality at the actual edge. Everything from that kind of like local data center, like city level data center, maybe even one step below that, to the clients and all these things that are happening, the IoT, the manufacturing, And then of course everyone's favorite, the driving vehicles, the self-driving cars and things like that. So I think that when we look at the future, the wireless networking is a core component of how this will be done. It is an enabler of technology and these capabilities that people are searching for. But ultimately, it's not a requirement to start, right? And I think that we're seeing that today. 5G networking, office to edge computing device, or office to tower to edge computing device in a very hyper local state is still emerging, right? But what we're seeing is a flourishing environment of traditional constructs like local connectivity in the ground or over the wire that's in the air, depending on how it's run, to some type of highly regional data center, right? Like, tier 3 cities having a significant amount of computing infrastructure going in. And those are becoming kind of this next tier of hubs. And I think David's going to talk a lot about this like every city data center, where as the 5G networks emerge around 6G beyond that, you're going to see a lot more network interaction between devices that are hyper local to each other and to software services and hardware infrastructure services that are also local to those devices. And so there's a lot of reasons that that's happening. And I think that certainly AI is driving a lot of that, machine learning and deep learning. And the majority of that's coming around some type of analytic, right? And real-time processing. I think that's the one use case that both Dave and I would sit here and say, yeah, that's the one we see, right? That's the one everyone sees, is real-time processing, video analytics, these multitude of different types of real-time analysis happening. And it's not so much, weirdly enough, like latency driving that, I think, as much as it is like today, to be fair, but as much as it is capacity, right? Like a lot of data is having to be sent back and forth and stored and executed on, and just needing that much bandwidth to go all the way across the country to some cloud center is hard from both throughput perspective and capacity perspective, but also from a latency perspective. So we've touched a lot on latency, but I think that these local data flows, the need for highly resilient connectivity, and then ultimately this confidentiality of data are the challenges that people are trying to solve for. And I think the funny thing that's here, this on-prem is kind of, it's in a lot of cases for companies, it's kind of the edge today, right? Like you see large organizations, like campus large organizations, if you look at an Intel or somebody like that, the manufacturing plant in Chandler has a fairly large data center local to it. That would be considered on-prem today, right? But in the future, through the magic of IT analysts and other things, that will be lumped into edge, right? And so some of this is share shifting around of how the terminology works. But ultimately, if you look at this past the next 5 years, the edge starts to increase, I think, at the expense of centralized public cloud computing. And the hyperscalers are going to be driving some of that because they're going to be pushing hard to get their type of platform edge computing into the quote unquote edge locations or distributions. So we've talked a lot about the challenges, but ultimately we get some significant benefits, right? Scaling I think scaling the IT infrastructure, the networking capacity to meet a need is much easier with a shorter distance to be considered, right? And that's just kind of the nature of the way that the networking in the ground looks today, right? In terms of getting data across the country, there's less capacity. There's less capacity. It costs more because of the capacity restriction. The investments to get all the way from point A to point B are more, and so we see it, how much people can scale locally with edge devices talking to edge computing capacity and storage capacity. You certainly get the speed and latency boost. And then in a lot of cases, depending on how that execution is happening, you can get a significant privacy and security upgrade. I think the one on the right is still very dependent on how you choose to implement your connectivity to the edge and where those edge computational resources sit. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of things today that are that vary, let's put it that way, that vary in their security posture. So I think that, more than just talking to these data points in terms of the main use cases, I think I will opine on my beliefs of what's driving or will be driving edge computing for the next 10 years, right? And I think that the three in the middle are probably going to dominate the edge, I guess, kind of middle. Predictive maintenance, supply chain management, or supply chain manufacturing edge, I guess. And then the enterprises trying to do creative things in a lot of regions with their service portfolio. Sometimes that could mean Honeywell making thermostats and using those thermostats to talk to something local for some reason. Every enterprise out there that is trying to enrich the user experience at a highly local to the environment that they're in is going to be after trying to provide that services, mostly software, at some type of enterprise edge. I think that certainly retail is going to be dominating this area to try to enrich that experience. And I think that those three give the most tangible direct line use cases that people can see happening very, very soon, right? I think that the new technology that just went into Detroit for Delta, I forgot the name of the company, but you basically walk up, you scan your ticket, and then it changes this entire signage board that's the size of like a football stadium, screen into a personalized data experience for just you, based on where you're standing in this crowd of people, right? Is just bananas. And that type of experience, it takes a lot of data analysis, analytics, and the machine learning and data-driven content delivery, right? And I think that that's a very, very cool but very, very small example of what it will look like to walk into an Apple store or a clothing outlet or something like that in just the next 5 to 10 years, right? It will be, an absolutely revolutionized experience, and and data, real-time decision making, and analytics are going to be at the heart of all that, and by proxy the edge as well. So I think that, you know, this is the tangible one. I would love to have an autonomy, like this multi-vehicle autonomy would be fantastic. Cars talking to cars and everybody just getting in their car and getting from point A to point B. You know, most people would say probably still 15 years plus out for that kind of thing. So, you know, people are working on it. Not to say that people are working on it, and if you are one of those people on this call, you know, we'd love to talk to you, but you know, it's not the dominant edge computing use case. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Fox from American Tower, and they're going to tell you all about how they're leading in this on the physical side, and then I'll come back to wrap up how we're doing stuff together that may change the way that you think about edge and what you have to accomplish. Take it away, David.
Thanks, Will. So we want to give a quick introduction and talk about how American Tower is going to contribute to the physical infrastructure and the ecosystem of edge. We currently operate through our traditional business a wireless communication site at over 40,000 locations across the US, and those locations will and do have wired fiber at a vast majority of these locations, as well as today 4G, and we'll have 5G technology. So there'll be a convergence of the wireless and the wireline at these locations. A lot of these locations additionally have backup power, shared backup power for the big mobile operators and 5G operators. And this infrastructure, the way it's distributed, as Will's talked about, we feel hits the pillars of edge of latency. You can see based on each one of those dots being one tower location of how we reach out and get close to customers and their needs for location-based specific workloads. You can see how it could eliminate high cost of data flows, as Will spoke about, moving around the country. And it could provide a new level of resiliency where you have workloads in multiple locations, and if there is a failover or an issue, it could be based on the utilization in the site, it could be based on peak power times in certain regions and certain states, and based on the workload. So we see the future of edge as you know, combining 5G and wireline for edge computing, and then the location, whether, as we looked at where people have their workloads, whether it be on-prem or near-prem, is critical to attaining the low latency and location-specific workloads for IT or OT workloads. So when you combine multiple ways of high-speed connectivity with bare metal and processing at the edge, you can see where we're going to have the ability to drive advancement of technologies that we've talked about for a long time, right? AI, ML, AR, VR, and having those workloads close to where the users are is going to be critical, as well as the resiliency of and the latency of the workload and the compute. So the advancements of these technologies, we feel, have and I'm sure you do too, have potential to revolutionize entire industries. And there is, endless amount of innovation, things we never thought of when we first got our iPhone, of what will come from that, or our Android. So these edge data centers combined with our partners like PNAP will open new possibilities for use cases and business models in all verticals. And we don't have a crystal ball, as Will said. Some of these are still a few years out, to see what is going to drive your business and create revenue for your business, for your customers, for yourself. But we feel that the combination of this distributed real estate, our acquisition of CoreSite, and our partnership with PNAP with compute and storage it will be ready to help support you. So we look at the most important physical attribute to what we bring is to be able to provide a scalable and complete offering of what we call edge, which is different than maybe others and their definition. Again, our micro edge is out at the tower sites. That I refer you back to that map and those dots, that's the edge. And then it can go back to an aggregation center that has pushed connectivity further out to support the micro edge, and then back to the core. And a workload will naturally go to where it should go. There'll be specific use cases, as we talked about, that need to be processed near-prem, on-prem, at regionally, or at the traditional big core data centers, whether that's a hospital that is storing long-term medical records up in the cloud, whether they're processing certain semi-latency needed operations in the aggregation center, or it's the micro edge where there's something that is critical that needs to be done. Same with manufacturing. And each one of those will be a part of a total solution to meet the market's need for what these new use cases will bring. So to add on to Will's list, we feel that smart farming and supply chain, manufacturing, air and ground logistics, healthcare, intelligent transportation, smart grids, security mitigation, where you can use the actual edge data center as a physical firewall, entertainment, media, and gaming, delivering apps to users, banking, retail, whether that be, as Will said, either the smart travel of the future or the smart retail of the future, whether that's a fast food chain giving you that experience, or again, or a retail store, or a bus stop giving you the most efficient routes based on traffic patterns to get to where you need to go. And as we spoke, you kind of step back and you say, how does this really work with our traditional real estate? Is we own this ground under where the tower resides. And again, there's already primary power there, there's fiber there, there's generators there, there's shelters, and there'll be an edge data center to move that workload further out. And we'll think there'll be different flavors of these data centers based on the demand in a specific market. There'll be some of a size that are 50 kilowatts. This is one of our products that we have deployed today, and it's testing in the field. And we've partnered with PNAP on deployments. where there's a 10 rack solution. You can see these are broken down into quarter racks, and this could be one of something you might see out in a more rural area for smart farming, where someone doesn't need a significant amount of space. There's, this is a traditional hot aisle, cold aisle, redundant cooling, enough space. There's dark fiber there. There's access to control monitoring, and then there'll be another product where there could be actually 1 to 4 megawatts at a cell tower, something in that size, where it's going to be more of a regionally based, maybe a larger population center, where someone needs access to a near-prem workload, but they know it's going to need a larger footprint. So this type of facility then will give us more space, more power. It will be outfitted with more redundancy to provide the uptime and security that you're used to. So again, we feel that we have an important place to play in the edge market. These facilities in this physical layer is strategically located around the country and around the world, for that matter, in 25 different countries, and we have over 220,000 around the world. And we've been operating this type of turnkey infrastructure as far as the critical power, the distributed footprint, site access, all of those things. All of those things come along with how we've operated infrastructure since the company began. And we're focused on providing that resiliency and reliability and an easy to work with model to scale up and scale down needs with the marketplace when we get there. So again, I'll hand this back over to Will, but we're very excited and appreciate your time to be able to talk to you today. We feel that there are very specific needs on location-based compute and storage platforms, and there's use cases today for that. And we're working and looking for partners to help push the ecosystem forward so that we're ready for what all of our customers need. Will, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome, thanks, David. And we actually had a question during that, so I'm gonna pose it back to you, David, real quick, if you could hang with us. So, someone asked, what's that look like in terms of American Tower connecting aggregation data centers to the micro edges today? What does it look like today, and how will it look in the future from your perspective?
So I think that there'll be options, whether it be layer 2 connectivity, whether it be the OCX fabric or another fabric connecting into the data centers. And it'll also be fixed wireless is a possibility, and 5G connectivity, because it is right there. I think we have. I agree.
I think that, long term, you see the count of micro edge facilities will be significant enough that I think even things like low latency fixed wireless connectivity will be reasonable, right? And
I think the application will drive the connectivity solution.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's exactly it. The location, its distance from the aggregation data center, and what's available to it, right? In terms of fiber in the ground currently, cost to run more, and or the bandwidth needs of that edge data center or micro edge data center is really what's governing that. And PNAP and American Tower, we launched our first bare metal cloud node. I'm going to talk more about what this means, but our first bare metal cloud node in Austin, Texas, and we worked for months to try to understand what that connectivity needs look like between a stack of metal as a service infrastructure and the aggregation data centers. And we continue to work with how do you interact with those metal instances in both traditional, I'll call it just like cloud region type ways, and also in the hyper local ways. and this is still an emerging story, right? Like we're both still working with the telcos out there to say, okay, connectivity, how can someone from their manufacturing plant half a mile away from this tower connect directly to the compute workload in that facility, right? And that is where we are still doing work, right? So it's a continuing, emerging way. And ultimately, I think that when you combine the power of what PNAP can do from an infrastructure as a service perspective and what American Tower can do in terms of presence, connectivity, and the security and the deployments of data center infrastructure in today, I mean, it's numbering in the tens, and next year it'll number in the 20s, and then further and further from there. I mean, Dave, I'll answer for you, but like I think you guys have what, like 4,700 assets just in the United States, of something like that, something crazy.
Yes, I mean there's been identified a very large number of locations that would be ready to go.
Yeah, they're not all feasible, right? But like just that number by itself is already somewhat comical, right? And I think we're just getting started on that, right? And how do we get? It's one thing to deploy a piece of computational equipment, right? And I say that word generically because it doesn't just mean servers. It kind of means like accelerator servers, network infrastructure, storage infrastructure. But like, how do you get that deployed in such a manner that organizations can just kind of get started quickly? And that's what PNAP and American Tower have been working on. Offering access, instantaneous access to computational infrastructure in as many places as we can, and enabled specifically for addressing the edge use cases, the edge application use cases. And it's everything you mentioned right here, or I mentioned right here, I guess, everything we are talking about today is driving this capability. So when I talk about bare metal cloud, a lot of people somehow still confused. I understand, so I'm going to try to get it to break it down easy. When people look at public cloud hyperscaler infrastructure, there are expectations, there are capability sets, and there are drawbacks, right? And the centralized public cloud, multi-tenant, hypervisor-based PaaS platforms, and make no mistake, these are not infrastructure as a service platforms. They are platform services platforms that are offering APIs for literally everything, and services that they're delivering to you. They are great. They're amazing. They do wonderful things. They do infinite things that PNAP and American Tower cannot do, will not do. But ultimately, they have drawbacks, right? The drawbacks are cost, the predictability of the performance of what you're getting. I think if you've used any public cloud, you've experienced this where you see, I bought this. I'm just gonna pick on AWS because they're huge, right? So I bought this M6X large here in region A. I bought another one in region A, and I bought one in region C, and the three of them do not perform the same. My application is running the same application. Maybe it's video delivery. I get X amount of transcodes on this instance, Y amount of transcodes on this instance, and Z amount of transcodes on this instance. Like, this is a very common complaint. When you're willing to do things yourself, when you're willing to manage the operating system and application platform, then you find that the infrastructure in public cloud can be hyperscale public cloud can be very inefficient and expensive if you just desire infrastructure. And ultimately what we've done is we have developed the ability to leverage physical server infrastructure like it's a virtual machine in a public cloud. It's not hypervisor based, it's physical infrastructure orchestration, but we are delivering it in a consumption model that is consistent with public cloud infrastructure consumption. Infrastructure as code tooling integrations, flexible billing, hourly, monthly, reserved instance types, lots of different availability of instances, myriad of infrastructure or operating system choices to kind of start from, and delivering this increasingly at more locations with different capabilities. That's the story of today. The story of today with American Tower is taking these capabilities from PNAP into points of presence with American Tower and CoreSite that give customers access to different capabilities. Maybe that's presence in terms of regionality. Maybe that is access to wireless infrastructure as we increasingly work on those projects. Maybe it's to combine with a bit of co-location that they're doing with American Tower, right? We see a lot of people saying, look, I want to do this, at least this myself with 100 regions. I may use a little bit of compute with someone else from a virtual machine or a function of the service platform in 1,000 regions. But these 100 locations, I want to put my own gear in. I'm doing something special for me and how I operate. And American Tower can handle that from a co-location perspective. And then PNAP can come in and can augment that with burstable computational access. And then, delivering those solutions on top of that metal is kind of core to where we're going from here. I think ultimately, there's only so much you can do with the automation of network servers storage, right? And we have to start offering extra bits of goodness that our customers can take advantage of. And we know that a lot of the edge workloads are happening in brand new microservices applications. And so we're offering the orchestration capability to be able to say, one API call, I want a Kubernetes cluster in this edge data center, go. And that's what we offer today. And so I assume most of you have heard of us if you're here, but ultimately, we've been in business a long time. We're partnered up with an amazing Fortune 500 company that is doing just a billion things other than what we've talked about today. But American Tower has been a very core partner to PNAP as we drive our vision for infrastructure as a service, pure infrastructure as a service forward. We need partners. None of us can do this ourselves. American Tower can't do it without network providers. I would argue that American Tower can't do it without computational partners and infrastructure as a service partners. We can't build data centers. We don't all over the globe, right? I think that's the ultimate goal for ATC, is all over the globe. We don't have the capital, we don't have the land, we don't have the networks already in the ground from doing business for the last 20, 30 years. I think this is this kind of necessary of needing each other and growing together. Yeah, I think this is where we're at today. As you notice, Austin, Texas is that edge location powered by American Tower. We've got more coming in 2023 into the end of 2022, into 2023. In combination with ATC, we're doing some stuff on the regional access side as well in London next year. So we've got more to go here. And we're going to be deploying the bare metal cloud product in more of these locations as well. And today, we just started rolling out this promotion. We're going to offer everyone on the call, if you sign up at bmc.phoenixsnap.com, click the sign up button, fill out the form, put in your credit card just to get a form of payment. It doesn't charge, you don't get charged anything. Form of payment, reach out to sales@phoenixapp.com, tell them you signed up from the American Tower webinar, and they will give you $200 worth of credits to try with anything you want across all the regions and whatever works for your business. That could get you 2 months at least, in some small instance types, maybe even 3 months of server access to play around, to understand the platform that we're building. And then I think if you do it in Austin, it'll probably even get you like almost 4 months of services. So if you want to try out that edge data center experience from an infrastructure service perspective, choose the Austin node. The instances are really powerful, and you can give that a shot. All right, last question. This is really important. Our marketing team, they want to know. If you want to talk to us, you can click it and we will contact you. We will try to figure out what you want to talk about. If you want to talk to ATC, just American Tower, we'll broker that conversation and we will disconnect. If you guys want to talk to both of us or just PNAP, we'll do the same. And then if you want to try this stuff out but don't want to talk to someone in sales or marketing about your needs and what it might look like, feel free to click not right now, but then still go sign up, right? You can still take advantage of the promotion and go from there. All right. Let's get some more votes if we can. We're a little bit short of the votes. I know everybody's at the end of their day, at least end of this webinar, and then we will wrap it up. And remember, we are going to be we'll do a little bit of Q&A after this, and then also we're going to be distributing that $100 Amazon gift card. Q&A. So we had a couple questions. We answered one of them. Let's see what else we got here in the list. All right, let's look at the first one. How do bandwidth costs compare in edge versus public cloud? You know, I'll take that one so much as to say that, look, nothing compares to the cost of public cloud, right? Like if that's the comparison that you're trying to draw, I'll give you a quick snapshot. The Austin region of our bare metal cloud platform costs 1 cent a gig per, and that's the pay-as-you-go price for just consumption. We offer reservation packages down to like 1/3 of a cent a gig, and you know AWS starts at 9 cents, is what 10x, and goes down to 5, I think publicly. Maybe you can get them a little bit lower than that, but I mean, I'd say at minimum, the public cloud bandwidth costs are 3x easy, and in most cases, much higher than that. I also would note that we actually don't have a price delta between our edge instances and our regional data center instances because we're trying really hard to make sure that the costs to deliver these services are less expensive than anywhere else. And then I think as you expand that conversation out to like the long term, whether that's private RAN, whether that's 5G wireless access, I think that we will certainly have specialized tiers for different types of access and ultimately what it costs the combined ATC PNAP to deliver that service. And I would say in most cases, it would be less even than what it would cost for normal kind of transit exit bandwidth. All right. The second question was, how many edge instances do you guys offer? So we launched the ATC node in Austin. We delivered 3 different types of edge computing nodes to that data center. So there's 3 different tiers that you can pick from today. We're going to try to expand that over the next few months to provide not only a little bit newer infrastructure, some more dense computational infrastructure as well. Today, what's out at the edge are very powerful single proc instances. We've got a lot of requests for dual socket and other things, and we're going to try to accommodate that. And then I think the last question was, what are you guys doing with Megaport, and how, does that help? I'll summarize. Essentially, in all of our regions, you can connect to Megaport to connect to public cloud infrastructure or to another regional data center that you might occupy. This includes the Austin region with American Tower, the Edge Tower instance. Both PNAP and ATC are partnered with Megaport. So we've got a lot of love going into this relationship. And you can leverage their kind of advanced technologies like Megaport Cloud Router to really, get multi-homed connectivity out of one of these edge data centers to any other region, to any other public cloud infrastructure provider out there. And I think that it's a very, very powerful solution that we highly recommend our customers take a look at. All right. I think, we had another question that come in about operational effectiveness and infrastructure tooling. I mentioned the stuff that we actually support many more than this, but the common ones we see today: Terraform, Ansible, SaltStack, Pulumi, Cli, like actual physical terminal client. That's really what we see from the automation perspective. We support a lot of other stuff, Chef, Puppet, and more, and much more than that. So if you are looking to orchestrate infrastructure, we have a solution for you that is integrated with our platform today. If you're in the Kubernetes world, we're about to launch a native cluster API provider. If you use Rancher today, you can deploy Rancher worker nodes from any in Phoenix NAT Bare Metal Cloud from your Rancher management console, and it will build Kubernetes clusters on top of physical node infrastructure in any of our IaaS nodes around the globe. So lots of different capabilities there. All right, I think with that, we'll wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day. I know that webinars are hard to come to and listen. I hope the content was powerful. It's got you thinking about what you can do, what you should be doing. And if you want to talk to us about anything, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're literally a bunch of techno nerds sitting here trying to help people with cool stuff. So reach out and we'll talk about it. Thank you. Have a great day.